While fatal snake attacks have become increasingly rare in modern times due to the introduction of antivenom in Australia, at one point they were incredibly common, and even in the modern day they certainly happen more than you'd think, with the most recent fatality occurring less than a month ago as of the time of this recording on the 28th of January 2023. In this video, I'm going to be covering the history of fatal snake bites in Australia, the snakes responsible, and some individual cases as well. Now, I know this is a little different to some of my usual videos, so if you guys enjoy this and would like to see more videos along these lines, make sure to let me know in the comments. But without further ado, let's get right into the video. Now, although Australian snakes can obviously be very venomous, it is worth noting that comparatively little is known about the protein compositions of venoms from Australian snakes, at least compared to those of Asia and America. Despite this comparatively little knowledge of the actual makeup of our snake's venom, it is known that 5 of the 10 most venomous snakes in the world are found in Australia. These snakes are, in order of the most venomous to least venomous, the inland taipan, the most venomous snake in the world that fortunately rarely bites people due to its remote habitat, the Dubois sea snake found off the northern coast of Australia, the eastern brown snake, which is responsible for the most fatalities in Australia in modern times, being responsible for 41% of identified snake bites in Australia between 2005 and 2015, and for 15 of the 19 deaths during that period. The coastal taipan is next, a relative of the aforementioned inland taipan, and last but certainly not least is the tiger snake, which used to be responsible for the most fatalities in Australia prior to the eastern brown taking over, and whose venom is 40 to 60% fatal without antivenom. Just bear in mind though, that list is ranked in order of the most venomous, not necessarily the most dangerous. If it had been listed the latter way, it would likely look a little bit different. After hearing that list and how venomous our snakes are, some of you may be wondering how on earth we don't have more than just a couple snakebite fatalities a year. And well, that is because of the miraculous invention of antivenom. Now, I won't bore you with the details of how exactly antivenom works, but all you need to know is it's basically a miracle worker and can and does prevent the deaths of hundreds of people from venomous snake bites. This unfortunately wasn't always the case though, as antivenom is a relatively modern invention, and unsurprisingly prior to its widespread use, snakebite fatalities were incredibly common in Australia. Between 1942 and 1950, there were a whopping 56 deaths from snake bites recorded in Australia, with 28 of those deaths occurring between the years of 1945 and 1949. Prior to the mid-20th century, it becomes a lot harder to find figures for the exact number of people killed by snakes, but it was presumably a lot. For example, in the 19th century, I could only really find 10 or so officially documented snakebite fatalities in Australia, while the actual number would have been substantially higher if the fatalities in that 8-year period in the 40s are anything to go off. But speaking of these early officially documented cases, I did say at the start of the video I would look into some individual cases I found particularly interesting, so I guess we'll get into that now. The first one I'll be covering is actually the first officially recorded snakebite fatality I could find in Australia, being that of William Drummond in 1867. In Melbourne at this time, there was a showman by the name of Shires who performed an act in which he allowed himself to be bitten by the deadly tiger snake. Drummond, clearly being somewhat of a skeptic, became convinced that Shires was a fraud, and subsequently demanded to be bitten by the snake himself. Shires complied to this demand, and Drummond subsequently passed out before dying soon after. Shires was eventually acquitted of manslaughter following this incident on the grounds that he had been denied the opportunity to treat Drummond using a homemade antivenom. 20 years after the case of the skeptical Drummond, a bite I find very interesting occurred, also in Victoria, but this time in the country town of Wangaratta. Sometime in February 1887, a Chinese market gardener was walking near his hut when he accidentally stepped on a 3-foot-long red-bellied black snake, which subsequently bit him on the heel. Following the bite, the snake was presumably killed and its head rubbed on the bitten area, which the Chinese believed was an antidote. This unfortunately didn't work, however, and the bitten man got increasingly sick before being taken to the Wangaratta hospital, where he died shortly after admission. The reason I find this case in particular so interesting is due to the snake involved. As some of you may remember, the red-bellied black snake was not among the 5 most dangerous snakes in Australia, and barely scrapes into the top 10. In modern times, the red belly, also sometimes known as the common black snake, is not thought to be capable of killing someone, and many sources state that there have been no official deaths recorded resulting from its bite. As to why those sources aren't including this case I'm speaking of now, I'm not sure. Maybe because it was so long ago and there was no official documentation, as I found this in a local newspaper. Due to this sort of confusion, I actually asked an Australian snake expert and YouTuber if he thinks it's possible this case is true, and that if a red-bellied black snake could kill someone, especially back then. He said that he thinks it definitely would have been possible, as less toxic snakes 100% kill people in other parts of the world. So thanks for that insight, Wicked Wildlife, and I'll leave a link to his channel in the description if you guys want to check him out. He's got some really good videos on there. The last bite I'm going to be covering in this video actually brings us to modern times. Despite being a more recent occurrence than I usually cover on this channel, I couldn't not include this bite in the video, given how unique yet sad at the same time it is. On the 29th of December 2018, Callum Edwards was attending the Beyond the Valley Music Festival, 5 kilometres southwest of Warragul, Victoria. It is not known exactly what unfolded next, but it is believed that he was bitten by a tiger snake at some point that night before he became very sick and was airlifted to hospital, where he sadly died 3 days later on the 1st of January 2019. You may be wondering, if it was a tiger snake that killed him, why didn't they give him antivenom and save him? Well, normally they would have, but the problem was the medical staff believed he was suffering a drug overdose, so no antivenom was given to him, and by the time they realised there was tiger snake venom in his system, it was too late, which ultimately led to his tragic death at the age of just 20 years old. Well, I think that's where I'm going to end this video. I don't really like to end my videos on such sad notes, but that is so often the case on this channel, unfortunately. Given the subject of this video, and particularly what we just covered, I'm not going to ask if you enjoyed it, but if you found this video interesting or informative, I would appreciate it if you left a like, and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos from me. But, with all that being said, as always, I hope you guys have a great day, night, wherever you are, and I hope to see you in the next one.